Terrible. What do you think?
Yeah, you know me. I think all y'all should quit killing people.
I agree with you, Jorge. All right. Welcome, everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about divination in the ancient world. But more than just divination in the ancient world, we're going to talk about a proto-civilization known as the Hatti. And the Hatti Empire was the civilization that existed in Turkey, in the region of Anatolia, prior to the Hittite Empire. But there are things about this story that are just fascinating once you weave them into a more succinct understanding of what was really happening in ancient times. Because if these ancient civilizations were using divination, if they were using a technology like this, would that really make them less advanced than us? Or would that make them much more advanced than us? And then the bigger question becomes, if it's real, and not only is it real, the question becomes, who else was using it? And who else is still using it? Don't forget to click that like, share, and subscribe button. Leave me your thoughts down in the comments. Welcome to Disclosure 53, Evidence for High Technology in Antiquity, the Hatti, the Hittites, and Divination. I like to begin some videos with a little science to pull the idea into a single cogent thesis. To do so, we need to begin with the science behind words. Can words of the human voice affect the environment around it? The answer is not only a clear yes, but the experiment to prove it is being done by 5th graders with 2 plants.
For her science fair project this year, the Comac girl and her mom bought 2 of the same types of plants from the same nursery. Both were then placed on the same windowsill inside her classroom.
This way it was even. They had the same amount of water, the same amount of sunlight.
The only difference, one was verbally complimented every day by Samantha's classmates, and the other was bullied. Students tracked it all by a checklist.
So the rules were, with bullying the plant, say mean things to it. Call the plant ugly, call the plant fat, call the plant stupid.
The plant that was bullied began to wilt right away, and after just 6 days, it died, while the one that received compliments continued to grow.
The case being made here is that in the ancient world, this fact was general knowledge, with large portions of the population participating in rituals and ceremonies. Magic and divination were tools common to these people. If you look at it not from a priest's standpoint, but rather as a chef's, that is a cook's, you realize that these rituals and ceremonies are really no more than recipes. And these recipes give you the ability to make strategic defense, military, and conquest decisions. They tell you what to plant and where to go for the winter. These recipes even allow you to ward off pestilence with your words and not chemicals. And this brings us to the subject of our video today. My interest was spurred by Dr. David Miano's recent YouTube release called 10 Mind Blowing Ancient Inscriptions Unveiled 2025-2026. In number 3, we find new inscriptions from the Shemua archive. In this brief segment, Dr. Miano speaks to the new finds, which include several inscriptions on what is called bird divination.
The Shemua archive. Archaeologists working at the site of Kayalapanar in Turkey have discovered 56 cuneiform tablets and 22 seal impressions this past year. They date to the late Bronze Age, which puts them in the period of the Hittite Empire. Many of them are unbroken. They're small, just about 2.5 centimeters by 1.5 centimeters, but they contain information that reveal a lot about the political structure, state practices, and religious beliefs of the time. Shemua was indeed an important administrative and religious center of the Hittites. The tablets are still being studied, but a good number of them have to do with bird divination, one of the 3 main forms of divination used by the Hittite government to determine what was going to happen in the future.
So you discover, just as I did, that the Hittites were using a divination method called augury, as well as using 2 other forms of divination, one practice using the reading of entrails, and another having a wise woman who used stars and other ways to divinate. But it isn't the Hittite background that we want to begin with today. They were doing magic, but it is their predecessors, the Hattians, that we want to focus on.
There are two primary cities in this video. Hattusa, on the left, was the capital city of the Hattian Empire, and it eventually was adopted as the capital of the Hittite Empire. The original Hattian Empire included the city Dr. Miano describes, Shemua. The art of divination has an element that makes the craft a local tool, describing movements in relation to fixed points of reference, only available locally. You don't read augury just anywhere. Shemua was a center for divination, and the city was most likely a headquarters for the technology during the Hattian rule. But again, they didn't write anything down, so the Hittites did it. That's what they found. It would be akin to a think tank of divination being uncovered. You outmaneuver your opponents, which worked for the Hattians for more than 700 years. Without a doubt, what we're going to show you is going to blow your mind about the technology of their capital city, Hattusa. I'm not sure if the other two types of divination are local to the Hatti, but without question, history shows that once the Hatti lost control of the city of Shemua, their ability to win was diminished significantly, and they succumbed to the Hittites not too long after.
These Hattians are a strange group who literally seem to appear out of nowhere. Their language doesn't match any other known language family in the region or on the planet, and they didn't even have a written language. Instead, they passed everything through the oral tradition. It was the Hittites who conquered them and then wrote down the words, rituals, and ceremonies in the Hattian language. That's the only way we get their language. Now here's an interesting note made by one channel.
When the Hittites established their empire, they didn't start from scratch. Instead, they stood atop the foundation laid by the Hattians. And that foundation ran deep, not only in stone and city, but in faith, ceremony, and identity. The Hattians may have lost their sovereignty, but their gods remained. In fact, the Hittites preserved entire Hattian rituals within their state religion. These ceremonies, often carried out in the old language, weren't just remnants of the past. They were central to the empire's spiritual life.
One of the reasons we need to alter our view of the past and this technology is to place the spoils of war in their proper perspective. When I discuss these various technologies of divination, I am not talking about quaint dances and customs. I am talking about accessing a machine with fidelity on future events. Consider divination a real craft, a technology that made the Hittites powerful, and likely why they eventually dominated the Hattians. But when it came to religion and ceremony, the Hittites acted as if the ceremonies of the Hattians were the gold standard. The spoils of war, it seemed, were the Hattian rituals and ceremonies. When these ceremonies or rituals of the Hattian people were performed, they performed the rituals in their original language because the Hattian people's language maintained the best results. So it wasn't just the ceremony, it was the use of their words that ranks it as what you might call a super language. I have said this several times and I will say it again. We need to begin taking things said in these writings as literally as we can. The most recent inscriptions reported by Dr. David Miano show that a standard of divination was used in their empire. If this practice of augury was lucrative, then we must assume that the other two divination types used by the Hittites had somewhat similar reliability. We have accounts of reality being altered by what we would otherwise call magic, some being it ceremonial magic, some being it ritual magic. And so my proposition is that we accept these as a valid technology, a high technology in antiquity. Arguably, it was the use of divination that allowed the Hittite kingdom to arise. This magic of divination was used as a weapon to overthrow other civilizations and capture their magical cookbooks. The Hattian civilization had an advanced cookbook, an advanced ritual and ceremony religion, and the use of that religion and a well-defended capital made them formidable opponents. One might wonder if that wasn't the nature of the fight between the Hittites and the Hattians. Who had the better magic? That isn't me. That's what history says. Would that advanced magic not make them worth conquering? After conquering them, however, they retained the name of the land. Now, why do that? I want to start small by pointing to the capital city of the Hattian people here, called Hattusa. There are remnants of the city wall still visible, and in the north, they rebuilt a small portion to give you a sense of how imposing this would be to try and attack. The south side is where things get interesting, because we have this giant arc. We can drop an arc of induction here and see how nicely it fits. And by doing so, we once again see that the purpose of these temples was to take advantage of an enhanced electromagnetic field in the area. We can move to a bigger view here and see that there is actually a triangle etched into the landscape by the apocalypse.
Looking at the bulb, my attention is drawn to these two wires that end here in the east. In the city compound, this is the location of the Royal Palace, sometimes called the Royal Citadel. This was the single most protected site in all of Hattusa and the Hattian lands. And these lines of power go right directly here into the royal headquarters. Why? Perhaps because it is the location of the phi of the delta. It is the local delta phi. This would make the royal home a home with access to high technology. Do you think that might make them a target? The Hittites made Hattusa their capital because Hattusa had a powerful technology, a type of machine that could be used to maintain the domination without maintaining a military. This machine was created by a people who came with a super language, advanced magic, and no past. Chew on that.
Interestingly, if we draw a straight line here to identify the angle of 150 degrees, we can extend it out to see the edge of the triangle's alignment with the angle of the crack down the middle of the Red Sea. This line represents the northern polarity of the magnetosphere while the Earth discharged at Venus. If we move out further, we can see that the larger delta shows how Europe formed as a ground, a delta. Think of this area as a big balloon of a magnetic field pushing up against Venus. Down here in the lower right junction, we have a delta aligned not with the larger structure, but with the Red Sea. And we can say that this formation occurred in the last moments of the event during the discharge. This would have meant a moment of intense force during a short period. Here in the city of Hattusa lived a people that ran a kingdom for at a minimum of 800 years, possibly much longer. This region wasn't just a functioning government. This was a functioning machine, one that used words to alter reality around it, one that believed in a mother goddess representing life and not just a father god. The knowledge, alignment, and context of the gods is what these people, called the Hattians, represented to the Hittites, and they overtook them around 1700 BCE in order to gain access to this knowledge. But before that, an ancient and technically advanced civilization, using the crafts of divination and ritual magic, succeeded for hundreds and hundreds of years. We've answered the question of whether or not there was high technology being used in antiquity here in Hattusa. That is the most definite yes. What we have to come to terms with is that they just appeared one day with mad crazy stone building skills and an understanding of electromagnetism, ritual magic, divination, and language. Don't forget to click that like button for me and leave me a comment down below. Peace out, everyone.